I was introduced to Jeff Dunahm at an age that was way too young. Thanks, Ma. And because of that, I have a ton of nostalgia for the guy and his shows. I enjoy them quite a bit. I used to think he was like the funniest guy in the world, and I still get some good laughs whenever I go back to rewatch his shows. So as you can imagine, when I checked online to see what other people thought of him, I was surprised to find that there's not a lot of people who actually like his work. It's mainly just because he uses puppets, but there are some legitimate criticisms too. However, when I asked my Discord server what they thought of the guy, almost all of them were overwhelmingly positive. They weren't just blindly agreeing with me because I had never talked about Jeff Dunahm before. So when it comes to Jeff Dunahm, like many other comedians, the reviews are a bit mixed due to the subjectivity of what's considered funny and different senses of humor for different people. But whether you like Jeff Dunahm or not, there's no denying that there's been an objective drop in quality for his shows lately. So I figured as a fan of his work, I could go back and take a look at his shows and maybe offer him some criticism if he's watching. And I know you don't care for criticism, but this comes from a place of love, and I only want to see you improve. Jeff Fafa.
Maybe something you think I would like. You racist bastard!
Now, although Jeff had been doing performances on talk shows and at comedy clubs long before this, our journey begins in the mid-2000s. He released his first Comedy Central special, Arguing with Myself, and that's when he blew up. This special included many of his characters like Walter, Bubba J, Sweet Daddy D, Peanut, and Jose the Jalapeno on a Stick. And it did very well enough for him to get a second special on Comedy Central titled Spark of Insanity. And this is where he really exploded. You see, he brought back Walter, he brought back Peanut, and Jose the Jalapeno on a Stick, as well as introduce a couple new characters like Melvin the superhero, who I wish would return because he was actually quite good. And last but certainly not least, Achmed the dead terrorist. Thanks to the power of the internet, that little skeleton gained so much popularity it wasn't even funny. And despite YouTube being in its very early days at the time, Jeff was surprisingly aware of it and how it worked. Hence why at the beginning of this video I suggested that Jeff Dunahm possibly could be watching right now.
Business analyst?
A business analyst. Fascinating.
Oh, and Jeff was smart. He didn't just go, "Oh, thanks, YouTube fans." He capitalized on this. One of the very first celebrities to do so, as he included a YouTuber in his next show. A very special Christmas special. He got Brian Hayner, also known as Guitar Guy. With this guest, Jeff was able to make the Christmas special the greatest show he's ever done to date. It is hilarious and has yet to be topped. Jeff had characters singing songs, reading stories to background music, and of course Guitar Guy would crack up, which would make Jeff crack up and pull the show to a halt. A very enjoyable halt. But then we move on to his next special, Controlled Chaos. Sorry I'm zipping through these so fast, by the way. We have 8 to get to. Basically, if you want a summary of Jeff Dunham's humor, he's a button pusher. He pokes at sensitive topics and pushes boundaries, but only for laughs, not really for shock value. But anyways, in Controlled Chaos, several fan favorite puppets were back. Walter, Peanut, Jose, Achmed, but there were 2 new puppets introduced. The first one was Achmed Jr., Achmed's son. And he did a good job. The chemistry with Achmed was very entertaining, and I wouldn't mind if he showed up again in a later show. And the very cool thing about this is that Jeff actually has very vague backstories for each of his characters, so he can switch around things or keep certain things consistent for his convenience. Achmed having a son that he accidentally blew up was one of them, and it was foreshadowed in previous specials. So it's neat that we eventually got to see him. But the second new puppet he introduced wasn't so great. Little Jeff. Now I understand that Little Jeff wasn't his own character at the time, he was just part of the joke that Peanut wanted to be a ventriloquist too. But that doesn't change the fact that all that came out of his mouth was super bland and generic self-deprecating humor, stuff that the other puppets like Walter and Peanut already do very cleverly. Aside from him though, Controlled Chaos was a very good special.
Actually, I'm excited, senor.
Why are you excited, Jose?
Probably because you're holding his stick.
Next up is Jeff Dunahm Minding the Monsters, another holiday special, this time centering around Halloween. And aside from Little Jeff returning, for some reason, this was another one of his best shows. He was able to put a unique twist on it by dressing up all of his characters and having them make jokes centered around whatever they're dressed up as. Walter had Frankenstein's monster, Bubba J had Dracula, Achmed was a woman. It was interesting. But even though I barely talked about this one, I want to go ahead and move on to his next special, All Over the Map, because this is where the decline in quality started. Now, this special was formatted very differently. It was a world tour, so each scene was dedicated to a different country, with multiple bits and pieces of each character telling jokes. And don't get me wrong, that wasn't the problem. In fact, it's probably the best way he could have gone about doing a world tour special. The problem lies in how the jokes are formatted. Typically, Jeff will have conversations with his dummies. They'd jab back and forth at each other and have an overarching theme of the conversation, even if it derailed a little bit. But here, there really weren't any conversations. It was just tell a joke, ha ha ha, tell another joke, ha ha ha, even if they weren't related, just back to back, no connection. It's not a problem because of how this special was formatted, but it was a problem because that's how later specials would end up doing it too. I don't know what happened.
That's right, I did a racist wiener joke. Happy frickin' Halloweener.
And then we get into his second worst special, Unhinged in Hollywood. Now, it started off pretty decent. Because it wasn't a world tour, they went back to their regular format, just one big long show with several minutes dedicated to each character. And while a lot of the jokes ended up still being disjointed and disconnected, it wasn't nearly as bad as All Over the Map. But unfortunately, this show happened late into 2015 after a certain someone had announced their candidacy for president. So unfortunately, we got a handful of political jokes that we had already heard hundreds of times over by people on the internet reacting to this announcement. But that's not even the worst part. Let's take a look at the puppets that Jeff actually included in this show. There's Walter, MK, Good, Bubba J, Achmed, to be expected. There's Peanut, and no Jose? Not only did Jeff not include Jose, one of his staple characters, into the show, but he dedicated an entire segment to Little Jeff for more bland, generic, self-deprecating humor. He also used them as an advertisement for Little Jeff dolls he was going to be selling. He lazily rushed and mumbled through an old act done by another ventriloquist as quote-unquote paying homage to them, and then did one of the least funny things he had ever done in his entire career. Oof, and it doesn't get any better from here, folks, as we move on to his most recent special, Relative Disaster. Now, at first, you would think that title is a cute play on words, since he would joke about his relatives a lot in this special, but when you're done, you'll realize it was just a description of the special itself. Now, this special happened in 2017 after a certain someone was sworn into office. So we got even more political jokes, spread out across several characters. But even outside of the political stuff, the other jokes were also insanely bad. Let's start with Walter. Remember how I mentioned that Jeff has these unique and vague backstories for each of his characters so he can do whatever he wants with them? Well, he decided to make Walter's a little less vague. You see, Jeff is adopted in real life and has never met his biological parents. So for some reason, in his show, he decided to confirm that Walter is his biological father, like some creepy, weird fanfiction thing. He doesn't even do anything with it, he just goes, haha, Walter's my dad, ha 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 ha, and that's it. Have fun trying to find a way to undo that little bit of Jeff Dunahm canon in your next show. But it gets worse. Throughout the years, Jeff Dunahm had been divorced and has gotten remarried to a woman who's like 18 years younger than him, so of course he had Walter take the opportunity to make a bunch of really creepy and uncomfortable jokes about that situation. Then we had another new puppet, but I'll get to him in just a second. The show didn't start to pick up until we got to Bubba J and Achmed, and then finally we ended with Peanut, where it went downhill again. Not only did he leave out Jose again, but he actually made Peanut unfunny. You're not supposed to do that, Jeff. Throughout Peanut's entire act, he had this running gag where he would yell into the microphone, and it would happen like multiple times in a single minute across several minutes. Peanut is supposed to annoy Jeff, not the audience too. Now back to that second puppet, which is probably his worst puppet so far, even worse than Little Jeff. Not only is he horrendously ugly, but he also has no unique jokes. There are 3 jokes he uses. One of them is, I'm a baby and I say bad words, which has been done a million times and is never funny. The second is Irish jokes, which was covered in All Over the Map when they visited Ireland, and the third is drinking jokes, which Bubba J handles just fine, so nothing about Seamus is unique. Each of the puppets has their own unique arsenal of jokes. Walter has old jokes, married jokes, war jokes. Bubba J has hunting jokes, redneck jokes, drinking jokes, America jokes. Achmed has skeleton jokes, terrorist jokes, religion jokes. You see what I'm getting at here. Not only have all of Seamus's jokes been covered by other puppets, but his only unique one being, I'm a baby that says bad words, is unfunny.
That's your baby picture. Oh, I thought those photos were supposed to be cute. I look like Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
Alright Jeff, so let's review. All your best specials feature all your staple characters, Walter, Achmed, Bubba J, Peanut, and Jose the Jalapeno on a stick. But some of your specials did include a new puppet here and there, like Melvin the superhero and Achmed Jr. So what made them funny but not Little Jeff or Seamus? The problem is that while Melvin and Achmed Jr. are unique, Little Jeff and Seamus are not. Melvin had these cool, unique superhero jokes that no one else had at the time, and Achmed Jr. provided this super fun and unique father-son banter with Achmed. Meanwhile, Little Jeff was just self-deprecating humor that other puppets did more cleverly and more smart, and Seamus's Irish jokes and drinking jokes are covered by other puppets and other shows, and his baby who curses joke isn't funny. So here's my advice for future shows, Jeff. Keep all your staple characters and just give them a unique gimmick, similar to the Christmas special or Minding the Monsters, your two greatest shows. And if you want to include a new puppet, then make sure their jokes are unique and aren't covered by any other characters or shows. Now before I end this video, I want to go over some other stuff outside of his specials real quick. Jeff Dunahm also has a YouTube channel and has also made an animated movie starring Achmed. Now as horrendous as it looks, Achmed Saves America actually isn't that bad. The jokes are decent, it's just being really held back by the animation. So Jeff, if you ever plan to make another movie or another TV show, just use your puppets. Some of my favorite YouTube videos are the skits you do with them, like the Christmas video from 2018, and the Mandela effect thing between Walter and Peanut. More of that, please. That is really good stuff. So overall, Jeff, if you're watching this, please take this criticism into account and know that it only comes from a place of love. I'm still a huge fan and I'll always be a fan, and I support you trying new things. Just make sure they're the right new things.
Fishy.